This video is sponsored by Full Moon Features. If you love horror collectibles, make sure to check out Full Moon's Tiny Terrors. Stick around for more information at the end of the video, or go to the website in the link below. Good evening, campers, dreamers, and babysitters, and we continue on with our Fantastic Fest coverage. Yes, like I had said, I think maybe a previous video or two ago, or maybe you haven't seen that video yet, because we got so much stuff, we don't know what to do with it. We're just putting it out as it comes. And we have gotten a few screeners that for movies we had been asking about, a little late to the game. I mean, obviously, Fantastic Fest has just been absolutely insane for everybody behind the scenes. Just like so many films, so many things that, you got to forgive and you got to let people know, hey, as long as you stay in the public consciousness with them and you just keep asking, sometimes it'll materialize. And that's exactly what happened here with easily one of my most anticipated of the festival here, The Origin. Luke, was this, I know this was anticipated for you. Were you looking forward to this one as much as I was?
Not as much as you were. You were the big champion of this one, kind of making sure that we actually get viewing of this one. For me, it was something I was aware of. I know you said we had covered it, I think, on Sunday Scaries at some point. And I remember being intrigued when it was first announced, just to see kind of what the concept was, especially the time period in general was really intriguing. But other than that, I mean, I really did forget about this one, since we do cover so much stuff. But then as you kept bringing it up, I was like, okay, yeah, it piqued my interest. But, for me, it wasn't one of the top tier ones. It wasn't, There's Something in the Barn, for me was a pretty big get, and a couple other ones. But this one was kind of, if I have an A level, this one was on my B level.
Absolutely. No, I get that impression from you there too. I think that this was just something that is really in the sales pitch of the film. It's right up my alley. It's again, I go back to my Fishmonger review I just did, where I talk about how I love concepts of horror that set themselves in a different time period. And I think that we've had a lot of success with that over the last few years. I think one that we talked about off air that we could very mildly compare this to would be like Prey. In the sense of just setting it in a different time period, not being in the modern era or the semi-modern era of just being like the 60s, 70s. We're looking at something that is far back, and this is, I believe, 45,000 years in the past is what it says at the beginning.
The good old days.
Yes, the good old days. And this was something that just screamed like my kind of film. This was something that, from the concept and reading it on Bloody Disgusting, I'm just like, yes, I love the idea of setting horror films in time periods that, in and of themselves were horrific and scary to be a human in. You know what I mean? Like the Ice Age, and just like, like being in that early time period of humanity where it's kill or be killed literally on a daily basis. It's, it was a good sales pitch. And so when we got to see this, I was pretty thrilled. And I'm happy to report that, I would say about 90% of this movie really works for me. There's a lot of aspects that I love. There's a lot of aspects that I was intrigued and did not expect. There is one main aspect that left me a bit disappointed. And we'll get into that a little bit. No spoilers, of course. But it was something that I just, of all the things they could have done, I really didn't want it to go that way. But I feel like for what they did and the journey that you go on, it's still enjoyable. It still works. It's just, if you guys know me and Luke here, as far as something that involves an entity, a creature, or something, there's a specific kind of... I guess, what's the best way to put this, Luke? Kind of a need, a necessity, a kind of a want that, we look for in these types of films. And I just feel like this one didn't really hit that.
Yeah, and, I'm on the same page with you. And just going back to the time period for a second here, I think it's a fun departure. It's a palate cleanser in a sense where, Nature of the Beast is, you said so many things in current time, and those are the things that we kind of deal with. We kind of get exhausted from living in the modern era sometimes. So when you see something like The Origin or, Prey, anything like that, where it's a basic concept, but we're setting it further back, so you're dealing with a lot of different obstacles. I mean, even the weather becomes an obstacle. Night and day becomes an obstacle in films like this, what we do see here in the origin. Um, I think that's such an intriguing part of this filmmaking, is just that difference and being able to kind of authentically make that time period. And yes, what Dylan's talking about, we kind of got into this film, I think maybe expecting something in particular, and then we kind of pivot a little bit, and it becomes something different. And I think looking at this film here, there's such a beautiful setup as well. It's like, I think they build it perfectly, all the way up. And even when we kind of get to the issue that we have with the film, and it's a mild issue, it's nothing, because I think they pivot pretty well, pretty adequately into something different, and that transition acts nicely. So it's nothing that ends up being a high, like, negative mark on this. It's just something that, we went into it maybe expecting something a little bit different, and we didn't come out that way. But it's a decent enough pivot to say, okay, this film is still fairly enjoyable.
Absolutely. And I think like the big thing that I want to talk about that really blew me away, I guess two elements. I'll get into this first one here. Is the look and setting of this film is so immersive and so unique. I think that they shoot this film beautifully. They bring a lot of texture and character to the landscape and to the characters in themselves. And I'm looking through the press notes before we get this thing started, and there's a few elements that scream out to me as very much they accomplish what they set out for, because they talk about being inspired by environmental terrors and astonishing world building fundamentals with films like Alien, The Hills Have Eyes, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and The Thing. I would say that there's a lot of visual elements that very much fall in line with a lot of those films, especially things like The Hills Have Eyes, because there's a lot of them crossing open spaces and rocky terrain and things, and you just buy into all of it. I was never once like, oh, these people are on a sound stage, or these people are, they don't feel like prehistoric human beings. You know what I mean? They don't feel like that at all. I was sucked in from frame one to frame the last frame when it comes to the visual style.
Yes, and just looking at that, you mentioned that little blurb there where they talk about world building, and I say this is the emphasis. This film is the emphasis of world building, because you really do feel like you are way back then, 45,000 whatever years ago, and again, they make so much use of the world that they're in. That landscape, there's beautiful. There's so many great shots from, yes, maybe they're just walking or they're running, but the way that it's shot is just beautiful. They make the most of it. There are these extreme wide shots of them just walking, and you get to see, whether it's a big hill in front of them, or the fog behind them, or the trees, and them going into the forest or anything like that. And you really get that sense of sometimes dread of when we are understanding the circumstances and what could be out there. You really do get a little terrified for these characters. And one of the big elements here is, I know we're probably going to jump into it, I don't know if Dylan has it ready in the chamber yet, but the language that they use.
Oh,
and
yes. Mm-hmm.
It's such a big thing when, especially, you open this up and they're around a campfire and they're speaking a different language and they're telling stories, and you're kind of getting the relationships of these characters. And again, this is something that is pretty foreign to us because it is set so far back in the day. So it feels like you're almost sitting at the campfire with them and kind of taking in these relationships and really understanding how the kind of hierarchy goes. And I absolutely love that about this film, because it does feel like you're part of that group. And I think there's only four, there's 5, 6 characters, I'm not sure, but it's one of those things where you're not dealing with this giant group, a ton of characters to get used to here. It's like this small, intimate group, and you do feel part of that.
Absolutely. And one of the very, I gotta say, like, impressive elements that Luke just brought up of this film, and just like kind of the thing you learn, and I believe this may have been in the article we covered, if you go back to our video on Sunday Scaries there, that they might have mentioned this, but I certainly got refreshed, or at least told for the first time, that they had develop their own language for these characters, and that is such an undertaking. And to teach that and to have people speak it in the film and to speak it so fluently, to where it doesn't feel made up, it doesn't feel goofy in any sense of the way. It doesn't feel like they're making up a language from Star Wars where it's just a lot of like gloop glop blah bleep bleep. No, this is very much you can almost
Feels authentic and
it
real.
does. Yes, you can feel it when they say something, and it's like one of those things where I love that the film has confidence in its audience too, of just paying attention because it's all subtitled. So it's one of those things where it's like it has confidence where once they've said something enough times, or once they have implied a character's name enough times, the subtitle doesn't come up anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of caught that on my first viewing here of just saying like, wow, I actually like can understand what they're saying when they say this thing, or what they're implying when they say this. And it's a very immersive experience. And I think that that's the biggest thing I can give the Origin right now, is that this is an extremely immersive journey from start to finish. And I think that as visual style, that's in the acting, it's in the language, but it also comes down to the music. I mean, the music here is incredible. There was, it's so good at one point it's deceptive, and I mean that in the best possible way. And I'll kind of get into this non-spoilery, but there's a sequence in the film where a part of the score comes in, and you think that it is something within the film. It's something making this audible sound, but no, it ends up being the score, and it haunted me. It's something that's definitely going to stick with me going forward here. And yeah, I absolutely adored the music of this. This is something I could see myself, just driving late at night, thinking about concepts or something ancient as far as script writing and things. And I do this a lot where I'll put on music or score or something while I'm driving and I'm just thinking, and that is exactly the kind of stuff that I would try to listen to depending on what I'm trying to craft in my brain. And I think that it again plays a huge role in what makes this film so engaging and so immersive.
And I think sometimes, especially with general audiences, that the score can kind of be underappreciated in a sense, where it's just like an extra garnish for the film. But I love films like The Origin because that dialogue, in some points, it can be heavy, especially when we're getting those interactions. But there are times where it is sparse, and in replace of that sparse dialogue, we're getting a really great score. We're adding tension, and I think that's something that is absolutely emphasized in this film, especially when it really starts picking up and we're kind of getting toward that threat. We really start amping up, and your heart starts going. Again, you feel like you're part of the group, so you're feeling that threat as well. And I think that music, the score there, really just drives that home. Especially there's a point when they go into and I know what Dylan's talking about, when they kind of go into, I guess, the woods, the forest, whatever you want to call it. And right then is really when we really start to get going, and your heart starts racing. And it can't be understated enough that score that they do have just emphasizes every different portion of the threat that we do have.
Absolutely. And I think now that we've gushed and we've said a lot of positive things, we should probably get into our kind of our joint criticism here. I know you have a couple others that are good points, and I think you even admitted they're more nitpicks than anything. So if you don't want to get into those, we don't have to. But I think one of the elements that again is it's more of a letdown, just because this has so many positive things about it, that this just really left me wanting a little bit more. And again, to the film's credit, maybe the version that Luke and I were looking for and that we discussed, maybe that's just more of the basic version. Maybe that's more of the version that would turn people off and make this less of a memorable film to some. But I'm sorry, I'm a creature feature fan, and when you get down to the creature of this film, there is a twist. There is a route that they take with this, and I think that I could have done without that. I could have done with a more straightforward approach to that. I think there's so much going for this film that to have it be a little bit more straightforward in that element, I think could have been more impactful, could have made this a more well-rounded experience for me, and less of a moment of scratching my head and saying, "Oh, okay, I guess that's where we went with it."
Yeah, and the way that I look at things nowadays, I feel like the route that they did take, that avenue, seems more so like a safe bet, especially with a general audience. Where, I've talked about it a handful of times, where you look at films like *Malignant* or *Barbarian*, where it's like they go for it, they don't pull any punches, you're either in or you're out. And I feel like maybe the Origin had that kind of crossroads in a sense, that fork in the road to say we can go down one way or another, and they went more so with more of a pleasing of a general audience to say, this is the route we're going to go with, rather than really going heavy into the sci-fi horror realm. And for me, I think they did it adequate enough where it wasn't overly disappointing, but I would have been way more happy if we could sit here and say this was a full-on like sci-fi horror element to it, because they do tend to pull back a little bit and try to go down that different route, maybe a more of a commentary in a sense, rather than just full force. Let's do the creature feature. Let's really get wild with it, which is what we kind of went into this really hoping for. And again, I think you always look at what could have been, because this is such a quality film with so much care taken into it. You really wonder what that third act would have looked like if they would have went down that route, because you can tell that there's so much care in here, and these filmmakers, they have an eye, and I'm curious as to what that would have looked like, because I can guarantee it would have been something that we would be speaking highly of.
Absolutely. And, I guess to really kind of wrap up our thoughts here and kind of put this into, the bag per se, I think that the Origin is definitely a recommend for me. I think that this is going to be something that I would recommend to all different kinds of people, whether you're a horror fan or not, just because I think that there's a lot to love here. There's a lot to appreciate, especially if you're a cinema lover. And I think that there's a lot of passion and a lot of dedication that you can just see on screen from these filmmakers and from the creatives involved, from the actors involved. I mean, they really do give a wide range of emotion and performance here throughout this film. And you kind of you have to commit to the bit when you're working in the confines of this story. And I think that they all pull it off tremendously. And again, I'm going to say name drop them. I might butcher it, so I apologize if you're watching this. But Adam Gentoa Bozowski, Bozowski, the music that you produced for this was just incredible, just amazing. I absolutely loved it. Again, the immersion that you were able to bring with not only your the things you're able to compose, but just the way that you were able to meld that with the cinematography and the direction. And I think Andrew Cumming is the director here. He's only done short films. This is his first feature. And I got to say, for a first feature, it's damn impressive. It's really damn impressive. I think that this and Francis Guadalupe's Last Stop in Yuma County, as far as first features go, it's really impressive to see what these guys are coming out with, because they are coming out swinging. And I think that this is one, again, it doesn't work for me all the way as to where, like, I think that Last Stop in Yuma County is a well-rounded film. But I want to see more from this guy. I want to see more stuff even set in this time frame, because they nailed it that well.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is going to be a recommend for me as well. Again, the only thing holding it back was, what could have been, honestly, but the avenue they did take, like I said, was adequate. It was well done. I think it leaves you satisfied in a sense, especially if you didn't come to this film with the expectation that Dylan and I had. I think maybe you'd be pretty pleased, maybe even more pleased than we could be. But overall, I'll say yes. What a strong directorial debut, to be honest. Like, there's so many beautiful shots. Talk about making the most out of your locations here, because everything just looks so gorgeous. It's so vibrant and dreary in a sense. It's just really lovely to sit down and experience this because, again, this is a shorter film. I think it's over an hour. I think it's under an hour 30, but
It's like an hour and 27 minutes.
okay, yeah, and again, sometimes these films they can feel like they're spinning their tires if it's a foreign language, it's a different time period. Maybe sometimes audiences are ready to get out of the film, but you're so enthralled with the interactions and that threat that what could be out there, it keeps you intrigued from beginning to end. So this one definitely a recommend for me. I think I'm eager to see this one again because I think knowing what to expect going in, I think my viewing, can kind of be re-racked in my expectations. And I think, I can even speak higher of this film after knowing what to expect.
Absolutely. This is one that I know I said to you off air. When it hits theaters, whenever that may be, I believe it's potentially slated for February, is going to be one that I want to take people to see, and I would love to see on a big screen. Seriously, like one of the biggest screens you can find in your area. It's that gorgeous. I mean, I was watching it on an iPad, and like I hate to say it, I know some people are probably going to cringe at that, but got to do what you got to do. I've watched films on my phone, and I'm always on the go, and I gotta say it looked breathtaking on there. I can only imagine what it looks like on a cinema screen.
Yeah, and I did check this one out on my TV, and it looks just immaculate from just being able to see it there. The details, I keep going back to when they're in the woods, especially some of the nighttime shots, just pure terror. And when they go a little bit
The
toward
use
the
of
end,
darks is
yes,
something we didn't even touch on. I mean, we could probably talk about this movie for a while, but like
yeah.
there's a lot of fantastic uses of just watching people slip into blackness and come back. It really does build tension well.
There's like they're in a cave, and there's some like lightning aspect, I believe.
Loved
Oh
it.
my
Loved that
gosh,
sequence.
what a way to
So
build
good.
tension. And that was we didn't even touch on that until right now, and that's probably one of my favorite scenes in this. I thought it was done beautifully. There's just so much here. Definitely check this one out. This one definitely has to be a theatrical experience if you can get there.
Absolutely. But alrighty, guys, I think that's going to wrap us up here for our review of The Origin. Yes, we still have many more films to come and potentially more on the line. Like I said, we'll probably be doing Fantastic Fest coverage way into the weekend, maybe even early next week. I don't know. We'll see as things go. That's the benefit and the drawback of being remote. But, hey, I'm enjoying myself. They've extended our window on the screening room till, I think, Sunday. So, hey, I'll take advantage of it. Luke will take advantage of it, and we're going to have a good time. So let us know if you guys are just now checking out The Origin. Let us know if we were way off base, if you feel like this is a perfect film and, we didn't praise it enough or whatnot. But, or let us know if this is just another one for the burn pile for you. I highly doubt that. But, no, it's great. It's fun. Obviously, another great and fun thing is that we are still working with Full Moon Features. Talking about Tiny Terrors. They did put out a trailer just this past weekend showing those little guys off and showing kind of what they can be and what they are. And they look exciting. I can't wait to get more into that with you guys. And it's going to be a fun October because, Splatterthon, it's right around the corner, guys. I don't know what to tell you. It's sneaking up on Luke and I. We still got a lot of fun things planned. It might not be as jam-packed as last year because of the Fantastic Fest stuff, but hey, we're going to make it work. We're going to make it something special. And I cannot wait to get into it with you guys. So, alrighty. Until next time, I am Dylan Newell.
And I'm Luke Janesco.
And remember, stay scared.